Hello and welcome to Unacademy, a one stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. A very good morning and welcome to the daily Hindu news analysis. So, let's begin today's discussion by first looking at the topics that we are going to discuss. From the Delhi edition of the Hindu, I have chosen 11 important articles. In today's newspaper, there are plenty of important topics that are relevant for both prelims and mains examination. So let's cover all these topics comprehensively so that you don't have to go back and read the newspaper again. But before we start, I have a very important announcement. Those of you who are preparing for 2026 and beyond, you have a golden opportunity to enroll for our online classroom program. Unacademy is offering the subscription at a discounted price, and you can enroll for a 12-month subscription at just 19,999, and you also stand to chance to get up to 12 months of free extension. This course will give you access to all the live and recorded lectures from our top educators, along with the study material, the mentorship sessions, the test series, and the doubt resolution sessions. Now, on the subscription page, you might see a different fee. But to avail this discount, this offer, which is going to end very soon, by the way, it ends on the 9th of July, as a new batch is all set to begin in the English medium. So, this is your right opportunity to enroll for the program. And as I said, on the subscription page, you might see a different fee. But to avail the discount, you have to enter the code IAS English. So, by entering the code IAS English on the subscription page, you will be able to enroll at 19,999 with a chance to get up to 12 months of free extension. Those interested can click on the link provided in the description box below. So these are the details of the upcoming foundation batch starting from the 9th of July. And if you want the PDF of the Hindu analysis, please join my Telegram channel by scanning the QR code on your screen. After the session ends, I'll be sharing the PDF over here. So, with this, let's get started and let's begin our discussion by looking at this important and interesting article on page number 8. This article is related to some of the challenges that India faced during Operation Sindur. Some new details have been emerging regarding the challenges encountered by India during Operation Sindur. Recently, the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Indian Army made a stark revelation, a very alarming revelation, which confirms our speculation as well regarding the China Pakistan collusion on the battlefield and how it posed incredible threats and challenges for India during Operation Sindur. This is the focus of the article. This is something that had been widely speculated by experts during Operation Sindur itself, that most likely China is actively colluding on the battlefield, providing a tactical advantage to Pakistan over India. These speculations have been confirmed by the Deputy Chief of Army Staff recently, who spoke about China's extensive role during Operation Sindur. Though India was at war with Pakistan officially, in many ways, China was also part of it, behind the scenes, playing a direct role in the battlefield at the tactical level, engaging in hostilities against India. So, this opens up an incredible challenge for India, something that is quite unprecedented, and for something that India has not prepared in these decades. So, this brings us to the question, to what extent do we see a collusion between China and Pakistan? What was the previous strategic assessment of India regarding the nexus of China and Pakistan? And going forward, from the lessons we have learned from Operation Sindur, what can India do to deal with the collusion between China and Pakistan? It is this interesting and important debate that we are going to have over the next few minutes, along with a practice question. And as I promised a couple of days ago, we will make it a regular practice to discuss the answer writing approach with a model answer for at least one mains question in every single Hindu analysis video so that it can help improve your answer writing skills. So let's begin the discussion, and first let's talk about the background, the history of China Pakistan nexus. See, by 1962, India had already fought a conflict both with Pakistan and China. Correct? In 1947-48, the first India-Pakistan war had taken place over the Kashmir issue. In 1962, the India-China war over the boundary dispute in the Himalayas had also taken place. So it was only natural for the two enemies of India, the two hostile neighbors of India, to come together and form a nexus, a collusion between them. As they say, enemy's enemy is a friend. In fact, Kautilya or Chanakya writes in the Arthashastra, in the Mandala theory, that the king should treat Ari's Ari as a Mitra, the Ari Mitra equation propounded by Kautilya, which is very relevant in today's geopolitics as well. Countries tend to treat enemy's enemy as a friend. India, for example, built very close relations with the Afghan civilian government from 2001 to 2021, given that Pakistan was a common threat for both India and the Afghan civilian government. So, a similar collusion took place between China and Pakistan starting from 1963. The two enemies of India, the two hostile neighbors, came together, establishing a strategic nexus between them. And in 1963, they cemented this nexus by signing the Sino Pakistan Boundary Agreement. Through this controversial agreement, Pakistan ceded a part of Indian territory to China, which China controls even today. I'm referring to the Shaksgam Valley. The Shaksgam Valley region in Gilgit Baltistan, which is part of Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So, Shaksgam Valley essentially is Indian territory claimed by India as part of the erstwhile state of J&K as it existed in 1947. Given that Pakistan occupied these territories illegally from India, including parts of Gilgit Baltistan, including Shaksgam Valley, all these territories are essentially Indian territory. So, Pakistan, which was under the illegal occupation of this Indian territory, ceded a part of it, the Shaksgam Valley, to China, and today China maintains a strategic control over Shaksgam Valley. China has made big investments, built roads, railway network, and even military infrastructure in the Shaksgam Valley. And today, the controversial CPEC corridor, the China Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, it essentially passes through Shaksgam Valley and Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So, thus, the Chinese involvement in Pakistan occupied territory poses a strategic challenge for India, a constant threat. And in a way, China becomes a party to the Kashmir issue indirectly. So, this nexus was further strengthened throughout 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s. China would go on to play a direct role in the military modernization of Pakistan. China has directly enabled Pakistan's nuclear weapons program as well as its ballistic missiles program, and most of the advanced military hardware and weaponry that Pakistan possesses today, most of it, most of it is of Chinese origin, both through overt and covert methods. China kept on transferring advanced military technology to Pakistan. It would leak nuclear secrets, the design of nuclear plants and facilities and warheads. It would directly enable Pakistan in the development of its ballistic missile program. Though Pakistan was involved in proliferation of nuclear secrets and material through the black market, the very founding father of Pakistan's nuclear program, AQ Khan, was part of this organized criminal network, which was leaking nuclear material and secrets to the black market. And yet, China was actively and willingly supplying nuclear secrets to Pakistan, enabling the country to build its missile program, which was primarily aimed at India to create a deterrence against India, be it some of its advanced fighter jets, air defense systems, its missile systems, including its naval ships and submarines. They're all of Chinese origin, Chinese design, and Pakistan's conventional military capabilities and nuclear capabilities, entirely thanks to the Chinese assistance, which has come through overt and covert methods. So, this nexus that we have seen between the two countries has always worried the strategic planners in India. India has always anticipated a possible two front situation, a two front war. I'm sure many of you would have heard about this term, a possible simultaneous war with both the hostile neighbors. This is something that India's strategic military establishment has been anticipating, planning, and preparing for over the last 60 years. Since the China Pakistan nexus was seen from 1960s, India's military establishment and security strategic establishment have always anticipated a two front threat. And in a conventional sense, this meant a possible attack, a direct attack from Pakistan and China, where India is simultaneously at war with Pakistan on the western northern front, along with a simultaneous war with China on the northern and eastern front. So, this is what our assessment of a two front conflict was. Some other experts also started calling it the two and a half front war. They would they would merge Pakistan's sponsorship of terrorism and the asymmetric hybrid threat Pakistan creates through its covert proxy war by sponsoring terrorism. And they would often refer to this simultaneous threat as two and a half front war, where India will have to simultaneously fight two states, that is Pakistan and China, along with a unconventional, a hybrid threat, which is from terrorism, that accounts for the half threat, the two and a half front threat. But Operation Sindur has been an eye opener for India. It has revealed something which had largely been speculated. See, in the previous wars that we have fought with Pakistan, for example, be it in 1965 war, in 1971 war, the liberation of Bangladesh war, or even during Kargil, in none of these conflicts, China stayed away. It essentially didn't get involved. It didn't directly play a role in the battlefield, at least, though it was helping in the military modernization, supplying arms and weapons. In the previous wars, after the China Pakistan nexus was formed, right, we have seen that China would deliberately stay away from the conflict. It would not directly get involved at the tactical level, at the operational battlefield level. In 1965, India was really worried that China might provide direct support and get involved in the battlefield, but that never happened. In 1971, even though US was pushing China to open a front against India, China refused to get involved and stayed out of the conflict. During Kargil as well, China didn't get directly involved in the battlefield at the operational tactical level. Of course, throughout this period, it was arming Pakistan, supplying weapons and technology, but we did not see China directly stepping into the battlefield against India. This was something which was a reassurance for India, at least till now, that the only threat we might face would be a two front or a two and a half front threat, where there might be a possibility of China also launching a direct war, a direct attack against India simultaneously when we are at war with Pakistan. So that has been our ultimate worst case scenario, which Indian strategic planners have been planning for, anticipating, and preparing for. But during Operation Sindoor, there were some new realities. Just like India established a new deterrence and a new doctrine against Pakistan, right? India has definitely established a new deterrence with regard to Pakistan sponsored terrorism. A complete paradigm shift has been shown by India that India is ready to escalate in the military domain, despite the risk of a possible nuclear conflict, and fight a conventional war against Pakistan within the nuclear threshold to punish Pakistan for sponsoring terrorism. So, if India established this new paradigm and new doctrine against Pakistan, Pakistan also has brought out a new paradigm that it will not hesitate to collude with China. And China has shocked India that China will no longer play a behind the scenes role or it would stay away from such conflicts. Rather, China would step into the battlefield, if not for a direct confrontation, an indirect confrontation where China is backing Pakistan at the tactical level. So, how did we realize the Chinese involvement during Operation Sindhu? That is something very, very interesting. Now, if you look at Pakistan's response against Operation Sindur after India struck the nine terror targets on 7th of May. Indian intelligence and military establishment, which were closely monitoring Pakistani movements and Pakistani communication officially, which was done through the DGMO channels to the Indian government, it clearly revealed the possible direct Chinese involvement, the direct Chinese involvement in the battlefield at the tactical level. What do you mean by this? What sort of involvement did we see from China? What is this new doctrine that Pakistan and China are bringing out? Experts are saying that we are no longer going to face a two front war in a conventional sense, meaning China will not directly attack India and cross the red line. Rather, what we are going to witness is a one front war that is reinforced by China, meaning Pakistan will fight India, but China will actively reinforce Pakistan in the battlefield at the tactical level. Now, if you look at Pakistani air defense, Pakistan deployed Chinese air defense systems such as the HQ-9. Though India did take out some of the Chinese air defense systems, particularly at Sialkot, Lahore, and Karachi, India did neutralize the Chinese air defense systems. But still, the HQ-9 was able to intercept some of India's projectiles as well. Some of the drones and missiles launched by India reportedly were intercepted by Chinese air defense systems. And it's not just that. Pakistani fighter jets, the J-10, the J-17, along with their PL-15 beyond visual range missile, did register a battlefield success, a tactical success against the Indian Air Force, as it has been confirmed that India did lose a few fighter jets at least. Initially, Pakistan went on a propaganda, spreading fake news that India had lost up to 5 to 6 fighter jets. India has clearly dismissed these claims of Pakistan. But however, India has repeatedly admitted at the official level, right, at the military level, that yes, we did lose few fighter jets, maybe 2 or 3 or 4. We don't know the exact numbers, but there has been official acknowledgement from the military leadership repeatedly, 3 to 4 times in the last couple of months, that yes, India did suffer few losses. Maybe a few fighter jets were down by Pakistan. And now the reports emerging clearly indicates that most likely these Indian jets were shot down using Chinese platforms like the J-10 or the JF-17, firing the PL-15 BVRMs. And that is what really worries India. How Pakistan has been able to gain a certain conventional superiority, at least match India's conventional superiority because of China's military hardware. And it's not just about China supplying these weapon systems. The support that China gave during Operation Sindur goes beyond this. What is really shocking and alarming is that India has confirmed that China was actively providing ISR support to Pakistan in the battlefield. What is ISR? Stands for Intelligence, Surveillance, Reconnaissance. Meaning Chinese platforms were being used, such as Chinese satellites, Chinese drones, and other geopositioning, geophysical systems to collect intelligence on Indian positions, Indian troop deployments, and troop movements. And clear warnings and intelligence alerts were being passed on to Pakistan by China in the battlefield. This is something which we had never seen before. Pakistan apparently was aware of some of the positions and movements of India and the preparedness of the Indian forces during those 4 days of Operation Sindur. And it was very evident that Pakistan doesn't have such assets to procure such intelligence. Clearly, it came from China's ISR platforms. And China was in the battlefield, monitoring the battlefield essentially using its aerial and satellite assets, flying its airplanes and drones and satellites over the battlefield, passing on the information to Pakistan in real time, providing tactical battlefield intelligence. Now, this is something which is new, something which we had never seen before. As I said, in previous wars and conflicts, China had strictly stayed out, and it would have supplied military hardware, which has been part of their regular bilateral relationship. Just like India procures weapons from Russia, France, or US, Pakistan does procure weapons from China. For the first time, we were seeing Chinese military hardware being pitted against Indian military equipment and Western military equipment. But what was new was the direct involvement of China in passing tactical battlefield level intelligence to Pakistan, which gave Pakistan a slight edge in some scenarios. So, this is what really worries India's military planners. It has also been reported that China was actively engaging in electronic warfare and cyber operations aimed at assisting Pakistan against India during Operation Sindur. This is even more alarming. There have been very credible reports coming out and a sort of confirmation coming from the Indian military establishment as well that during Operation Sindur, Indian systems did encounter active interception from Chinese electronic warfare suites. India had even been subjected to some sort of cyber warfare operations originating from China at the behest of Pakistan to shield and protect Pakistan. So, this support in ISR, electronic warfare, cyber operations, it takes the Chinese involvement to the next level, where China is now directly reinforcing Pakistan's war against India. China may not get directly involved with India, it may not directly open a front against India, but the very fact that China could get into the battlefield and behind Pakistan, it can stand behind Pakistan and reinforce Pakistan actively in real time when a war is taking place is something that is new, something that was not really anticipated. That's why experts are saying now we should abandon the concept of two front war. More than a two front war, what we are going to face is a one front reinforced war. When Pakistan is at war with India, it won't just be Pakistan. China would be right behind it, providing active direct support in the battlefield. Is that clear? See, of course, you can even include Turkey into this equation. But see, Turkey was primarily supplying weapons and military hardware. So, in that regard, India also procures military hardware from other countries, right? But China's involvement was one step ahead. China has not only given all the military hardware and helped modernize Pakistani armed forces, it is getting involved in the battlefield in real time operations and assisting and aiding Pakistani military operations against India, be it air defense operations or detecting India's troop movements and passing on the intelligence or engaging in active electronic warfare and cyber operations to subdue Indian efforts. And we also saw direct Chinese involvement in enabling Pakistan's psychological warfare to change the narrative during Operation Sindur. When Pakistan was busy propagating fake news and misinformation to discredit the Indian narrative, we saw that Chinese media, such as Xinhua, Global Times, CCTN, which are aligned with the Party and the Chinese state, they were acting as mouthpieces of Pakistan's ISPR and promoting Pakistani propaganda and narrative. Even on Chinese social media and even Chinese strategic experts and Chinese think tanks, which have some influence in Western countries, they were all essentially parroting what Pakistan was uttering. Whatever Pakistan was uttering at that point, trying to spread fake news and create a narrative against India to counter the Indian propaganda. We saw that Chinese amplifiers were Chinese influencers and amplifiers were trying to amplify the Pakistani narrative, the Pakistani message, which shows a degree of collusion as well in terms of psychological warfare. So, this could mean that China is willing to enter the information warfare battlefield as well and side with Pakistan and directly enable the psychological war campaign against India. And of course, we've always seen active diplomatic collusion between the two. This is nothing new, right? This is something we have seen in the past as well, where China creates a shield a diplomatic shield for Pakistan, especially at platforms like the United Nations, FATF, and other global platforms. Whenever India accuses Pakistan of breeding and sponsoring terrorism, China has always shielded and protected Pakistan. For example, at 1267 Sanctions Committee of the UN Security Council, China has on several occasions tried to derail Indian efforts to list Pakistani terrorists as global terrorists. China has shielded Pakistan at FATF and at various other platforms, giving direct diplomatic support, even after the Pahalgam attack. Did you know initially China was hesitating and unwilling to criticize the Pahalgam attacks and sympathize with India? It even supported Pakistan at the UN to water down the resolution that the UNSC adopted on the Pahalgam attack. At Pakistan's insistence, China ensured that the TRF, the resistance front, which was responsible for the attack, which is a proxy of Lashkar-e-Toiba, was not even mentioned in the UN resolution. And China ensured it by using its veto. So, active diplomatic collusion is something we always anticipate. We have seen that in the past, and it was evident during Operation Sindur as well. But the military collusion at the battlefield level, the intelligence collusion between them, where China was actively supporting Pakistan during the time of war, is something we had never seen before. So, this is the new reality that India should embrace. Maybe in the coming days, we may not see a traditional two front war. Maybe this assessment is slightly outdated. China may not be foolish enough to open a direct front against India. But what we might witness is a one front war that is reinforced by China. China would like to probe India's red lines, directly standing behind Pakistan, essentially placing the gun on Pakistan's shoulders and taking aim at India and firing the gun as well at India. That is what we are likely to witness, not just a traditional two front threat. Not that this is not possible, even this is a possibility. A two front threat is also a possibility, but more than a conventional two front war, I think what we should really be concerned about is the one front reinforced threat from Pakistan and China, where Pakistan will be at active war, but China will be actively colluding behind and enabling the conflict in the battlefield by providing all possible support, from providing intelligence, carrying out surveillance, using its satellites and drones against India, engaging in electronic warfare. There have been reports that Chinese AWACS systems were also in the air, monitoring the airspace along the India Pakistan border, passing on active intelligence to Pakistan and its air defense systems. This does represent a very significant challenge and threat for India. Then, apart from this, China can create even bigger problems and challenges in the long term. Now, let's say, even when there is no war with either China or Pakistan, both of them can still collude to bring pressure on India along the borders. Now that we have recently faced a conflict with Pakistan following the Pahalgam attack and through Operation Sindur, parallelly, we had tensions with China until recently, until last year in Ladakh, where a military standoff was going on. Though we have resolved the Ladakh military standoff, right? India can't be complacent. India would still be concerned about possible Chinese incursions and change in the status quo from China. So we have to maintain constant alert, meaning we have to constantly deploy troops, keep moving our military equipment to the front lines, and we have to sustain this on both the fronts. We have to sustain this along the western borders, the northern and eastern borders as well. This itself will be a significant cost for India. I hope you're getting my point. Even though there is peace right now between India, Pakistan, India, China, right? There's no active conflict going on. Still, for the coming months and years, India will have to remain vigilant on all the fronts, on the western, northern, and eastern front. You have to constantly maintain heightened alert, more number of troops in the forward areas, more military equipment in the forward areas. This is going to put a big strain on the logistics of the Indian armed forces, the resources and the funds of the Indian armed forces. So China can drain India by constantly maintaining tensions by colluding with Pakistan. This is also a new strategic reality. India may have to prepare for this as well. Maybe there will not be a all out war in a traditional two front sense, but both countries will keep on messing with India. They'll keep on probing India along the borders deliberately to keep India on the edge, to push India to be vigilant and alert all the time, 24/7, 365 days a year. And that is going to impose a significant economic and strategic cost on India. Sustaining such heightened presence in the border areas will become unsustainable in the long run for India, draining our wealth and resources, and it will put significant strain on our capabilities as well. So, this is what India should anticipate now. Going forward, India should consider the one front reinforced war, where Pakistan, if it is at war with India, we should assume that China is right behind. China may not be directly fighting India, but directly by giving the gun on Pakistan's shoulders, it would be taking aim at India. This means India will have to recalibrate its approach, be it the kind of armaments and military hardware and weapon systems that we have, that we are going to procure and build in the coming days. It should not only be aimed at China, it should be aimed at the China Pakistan collusion. The diplomatic isolation that we are aiming at Pakistan, we should concentrate the diplomatic pressure on China as well. Create create a cost for China and try to push China away from assisting Pakistan, at least during war. Right? India can leverage the economic ties that we have with China, or we can leverage platforms like BRICS, SEO, and others, our relationship with Russia, to try and bring pressure on China and force China to stay away from any India Pakistan conflict. These are the options India will have to consider. We have to accommodate these plans when we war game and come out with possible threats and strategize about India's response. We have to factor in the China equation. We have to assume that China is going to be one of the factors present in the battlefield. China would be the invisible elephant, right? The so called invisible elephant in the battlefield, actively aiding and supporting Pakistan in real time. So, this is something we have to factor into our strategic planning. So, based on this important discussion that we have had, take up this practice question, right? This is a most likely question which can come in the mains exam. The China Pakistan strategic nexus has evolved from passive alignment. Previously, it was passive alignment, where China was only giving some diplomatic support, supplying military hardware. So China's passive support was limited to this supply of military hardware and technology and some limited diplomatic support. India could have dealt with this. We've been dealing with it from a long time, right? And we were more worried about a possible direct two front war in a conventional sense, where China might also attack India when Pakistan is at war with India. But now it appears that these two countries have something else planned. China is actively getting involved in the battlefield. We are seeing an active collusion between the two. So that is what the question is asking about, right? China Pakistan nexus, the strategic nexus, has evolved from passive alignment to active battlefield collusion as seen in Operation Sindur. In this context, critically examine the challenges posed to India's national security architecture and outline a comprehensive strategic approach to counter the emerging one front reinforced war paradigm. So you have to be familiar with these terminologies, with the concept of a one front reinforced war. How is it different from a two front war? Only then you'll be able to write a good answer for this question. Now, please concentrate and stay with me and make notes as well. Jot down the key points I'm going to discuss, because I'm providing you the answer writing approach along with some key pointers. So you can start out with a good introduction of, let's say, a 2 to 3 lines, maybe 30 to 40 words, where you briefly introduce the new China Pakistan collusion, which was witnessed during Operation Sindur. Right? You can start your answer by pointing out that during Operation Sindur, we saw a new kind of collusion between China and Pakistan, where China was actively involved in the battlefield, which is unlike the previous passive engagement. Then Give examples to justify the argument here and bring out the concept of one front reinforced war. You can point out that China was actively involved in the battlefield, providing all kinds of tactical support, operational support. So this changes the strategic nature of the threat for India from a possible two-front war to a one-front reinforced war. So this is the stand you need to take. You don't have to provide all the details, right? Just provide this assessment that yes, we are seeing a new kind of collusion, a more active Chinese collusion in the battlefield. We saw this during Operation Sindur, and this changes the threat perception for India from a two-front war to a one-front reinforced war. So you're expressing your views very clearly, bringing out your opinion on this topic, providing a critical assessment. Then in the body, justify this argument by providing examples, by adding the details that are needed. So in the body, you can talk about the kind of support that we saw during Operation Sindur. Give the details over here in 50 to 60 words in one small paragraph. The body. Talk about China's active ISR involvement. Talk about China's military hardware being directly deployed. Chinese platforms like the PL-15, HQ-9 air defense systems, the J series of fighter jets. More importantly, even China's satellite positioning and navigational satellite system, the Beidou guidance system was deployed as well by Pakistan. Right? Some of the missiles that Pakistan fired at India and even the drones and projectiles it was launching at India, they were primarily coordinated and they were being navigated using China's Beidou navigation guidance system, which is the equivalent of the American GPS. So give those details here. Mention China's involvement in electronic warfare and cyber warfare. See, China, Pakistan, they have a joint military exercise called the Shaheen exercises. During the Shaheen military exercises, China, Pakistan focus on building interoperability. Basically, Pakistani forces are trained by China to operate Chinese military equipment during the Shaheen military exercises. And whatever Pakistan learned during Shaheen military exercises has been directly deployed in the battlefield. During Shaheen exercises, they practice scenarios where Pakistan is fighting a war with the enemy and China is actively giving intelligence and even engaging in electronic and cyber warfare against Pakistan's enemy. That is what we saw in the real world during Operation Sindur. Mention the involvement of China in electronic warfare, trying to intercept Indian communication, trying to intercept Indian missiles and projectiles, possible cyber attempts, and also the support that China has given for Pakistani propaganda and the information warfare, and how China is amplifying the Pakistani narrative, along with extending the traditional diplomatic support. So mention these points in one paragraph, maybe around 60 words, and then talk about the challenges it creates. So can you see the structure that I'm following? There is a logical flow to the structure. First, in the introduction, I expressed my critical assessment, right? I clearly took a stand and expressed my opinion. Then in the body, I'm explaining this one by one with all the details. So in the body also, first we started with the collusion that was seen with the details from Operation Sindur. Then the challenges it creates for India. So what are the challenges? 70 to 80 words, maybe 5 to 6 lines. You can easily explain what are the challenges for India, how it can dilute our conventional superiority, how the two-front reality is now changing to a one-front reinforced threat, and how it can create pressure on India's military systems and our overall military planning. Our entire blue book has to change. Our entire doctrine of dealing with Pakistan has to change. We need to update our strategic planning, from planning our military logistics to air defense to intelligence gathering, right? We have to completely revisit our military doctrine and strategic planning because of what we have seen during Operation Sindur. This is something you have to clearly explain. Because see, China doesn't hesitate to escalate the risk through these gray zone warfare tactics. Gray zone warfare essentially refers to where an enemy state, it doesn't go to direct war, but it will take every other measure possible which stops right before a full frontal conflict. That's what China specializes in. That's what China has always been trying to do. It doesn't want to open a direct war with India, direct front with India, but it will do everything else, which is just one step away from war. The active collusion that you're seeing in the battlefield is an example of such gray zone warfare tactics. So officially, China is not at war with India, right? Technically as well, China is not directly at war with India, but indirectly through Pakistan, it is at war in the battlefield. So how do you deal with this hybrid threat, this gray zone warfare tactic? What are the diplomatic complications that arise out of it, right? So mention these challenges in 5 to 6 lines and present a way forward. In another 4 or 5 lines, present a way forward. Try to address this problem. How can India overcome this challenge? You need to mention that we have to shift our doctrine. We have to revisit our military doctrine itself and go back to the drawing board and consider all the possible threats, collusive threats, anticipate this and come out with newer tactics. For example, India can also come out with some new doctrines. For example, we can diplomatically try to bring pressure on China using our economic ties with China. Maybe we should threaten to cut off key Chinese imports if we detect any direct Chinese assistance in the battlefield. We can try to work with Russia and try to bring some pressure on China and Pakistan to stay away from each other during a conflict with India. Apart from that, you can even suggest other options, other levers that we have which we can pull, such as the Indus Water Treaty. This gives us an asymmetric option to bring that pressure on Pakistan and try to push China away from direct involvement, right? Using the Indus Water Treaty effectively, which we have kept in abeyance, and considering the possible diversion and stoppage of water into Pakistan during such scenarios could be a great leverage for India. And also, India should become more unpredictable. See, if the enemy is so unpredictable and ambiguous, you can't have a structured formal response all the time. And we should also be very careful. We should not fall into the trap that Pakistan might be setting. It appears that Pahalgam attack in itself was a sort of a trap for India to drag into India into a conflict because Pakistan wanted hostilities with India, and it is very evident from what has happened after Operation Sindur. Right? Pakistani military establishment wanted to cement its position, the army and the army chief in particular. They wanted to drag US, get the US involved between India, Pakistan, and raise the role of Pakistan in terms of its engagement with US and Western powers, which has already taken place. And that goes against Indian interests. So, in the future, for every terror attack, our blind response should not be kinetic warfare. It may give you some emotional satisfaction to hit Pakistan immediately after a terror attack, but you may end up playing into the hands of Pakistan and the trap that China might be setting for India. So, India will have to come out with newer techniques, keep our policy ambiguous as well, and hit Pakistan and China in different ways, which they will not anticipate. So, this need not be through a frontal war. It can be through economic warfare, it can be through lawfare, using international laws and legal mechanisms to drag down these two countries. Even engaging in covert operations, targeted covert operations aimed at China Pakistan nexus. That is something India should consider and build into its doctrine, incorporate this into our strategy. So, mention some points like this and finally conclude your answer. You can conclude by saying that this is the new reality, the new paradigm, the new shift that we are witnessing. So we can't be complacent anymore. We have to redefine our own security approach. So something like this on these lines, just 2 lines of conclusion should be more than sufficient. So in just around 250 to 270 words, you would have written a beautiful answer, well structured with a proper logical flow of thought and covering all the points and all the dimensions. See, I'm sparing an additional 5 to 10 minutes to discuss mains answers in every session so that it can help in your answer writing practice. Please let me know if it has been beneficial, right? Though it might take some extra time, I think it is still worth it. So please make use of this and try to write answers and post your answers in the comment section. Yeah. Now let's move on to the next article and look at this important article from page number 10. This article is related to the revision of electoral rolls that has been started by the Election Commission of India in the state of Bihar. This exercise to revise the electoral rolls before the upcoming assembly elections has generated a lot of curiosity and criticism as well. So it's very important to understand, why is this revision being carried out? Does the Election Commission have the authority to carry out such revision of electoral rolls? What are the constitutional legal provisions concerning electoral rolls? Why a revision is necessary? What are the challenges? What are the pros and cons of such revision of electoral rolls? That is something we'll quickly understand. See, in Bihar, assembly elections are coming up in a few months. And in the run up to these elections, right, Election Commission, which has started the preparatory work, it has announced a special intensive revision, a SIR exercise, special intensive revision of the electoral rolls. So, what does it mean? It means that now the Election Commission is basically checking the names of the voters, their identity, their eligibility essentially, to ensure that any duplication is removed. If voters are registered in different constituencies, right, with the same voter ID, then such duplications will have to be removed. If there are any ineligible voters on the list, their names will have to be removed from the list. Essentially, it is a sanitization exercise, sanitizing the electoral rolls so that we have the most accurate voter list possible, which is essential for democratic elections. Only eligible voters, as per the constitution and law, should be allowed to vote. Correct? And there should be no duplication. There should be no electoral fraud which can be committed, possibly. So, to avoid these possibilities and prevent these inefficiencies in the election system, it is important to keep on revising, updating the electoral rolls. See, this is done quite regularly by the Election Commission, right? On a small scale, right before every election, there is a revision of the electoral roll which is done. But what is being done in Bihar right now is on a mega scale. The SIR exercise is very rare. So revision of electoral roll is very common, and Election Commission has all the authority to do that. Carrying out a SIR exercise, a special intensive revision, is a very rare event because you are asking all the voters to re-verify with the support of certain documents and get enumerated again in the voters list. In Bihar, we have a vote base of nearly 8 crore voters, and all of them are essentially being asked to go through the verification exercise to establish their identity and eligibility in order to be listed on the electoral rolls, to retain their names on the electoral rolls. So those who don't meet the identification and eligibility criteria, their names will be removed, either because of duplication or either because of ineligibility. Clear? Now, what is the constitutional legal provision in this regard? Right? You know what are electoral rolls by now. It's basically nothing but a list, a database containing the list of voters. As simple as that. That is your electoral roll. Now, who has the authority, the responsibility to create the electoral roll, maintain it, update it? This lies with the Election Commission of India. And who provides this authority to the Election Commission? It is the Constitution of India through Article 324. Article 324 vests the superintendence, direction, and control of elections, including the maintenance of electoral rolls, with the Election Commission. It defines the role and powers of the Election Commission, and clearly it has the authority to maintain the electoral roll, which means updating, revising it as well. Article 326 provides for universal adult suffrage. It mandates that those who are 18 years and above, they are the eligible voters in the country. Clear? And if you look at the RPA along with these constitutional provisions, if you read the legal provisions under Representation of People Act, the RPA of 1950, Section 16 is very, very crucial because it clearly specifies that non-citizens are not eligible to vote. So all those who are above 18 years, the country, they can vote, provided if they are citizens of the country. This is a core eligibility criteria, which means you have to prove your date of birth, your place of birth. Election Commission has the authority to check your date of birth and place of birth, to check whether you're a citizen or not, because Election Commission has a constitutional mandate, a legal mandate, to ensure that only eligible voters can cast their votes. Only eligible voters should have their names on the electoral rolls and nobody else. Non-citizens are not eligible to vote. Only those above 18 years should be listed in the electoral rolls who are citizens of India. So this gives the Election Commission the authority to check the date of birth, place of birth, and your citizenship. Here, Section 19 of RPA, it reiterates the age eligibility, which is 18 years and above. Section 20 defines who are the ordinary residents in a constituency who are eligible to get listed as a voter in that constituency and cast their vote from that particular constituency. It defines the original residents or the ordinary residents. Along with being a citizen of the country, you should be an ordinary resident of a certain place. You should have some documents to prove that you have been residing in this area for the past 6 months at least. Once you establish ordinary residency through the help of documents, you can get listed as a voter in that particular constituency on the electoral rolls and cast your vote. Or else, you may have to go back to your original constituency. Let's say you're from Delhi. You have moved to Chennai for your work or studies. You're an ordinary resident in Chennai. You've been staying there for 2-3 years. If you haven't changed your your electoral roll from Delhi to Chennai, right? Then when elections happen, you can't vote in Chennai. You have to go back to your original constituency, your home constituency in Delhi, and only then you can cast your vote. Now, Election Commission wants to address all these confusions and problems which have crept into the electoral rolls. Because of urbanization and large scale migration of students and workers across the country, right? Voters have been mixed up across constituencies. There are instances where voters are listed in multiple constituencies. There are instances where in the same constituency, voters are listed multiple times as their residence would have shifted within the constituency. Just because you have a property or you're residing in a constituency, that alone can't be the criteria. That's why Election Commission wants to sanitize the list, remove any such duplication, right? And establishing whether you're a resident or not is crucial to determine whether you're part of the constituency or not. And Section 21 of RPA provides the details of preparation and revision of electoral rolls. It defines the power of the Election Commission to prepare the electoral roll and to revise the voters list. Now, the big question is, why is SIR needed? Why can't a regular updation be done? Why is Election Commission going for a full-fledged exercise where all the voters, eligible voters, are being enumerated and cross-verified again? The Election Commission is just starting with Bihar because Bihar assembly elections are coming up. But in the coming months, this will be an all India exercise very soon. Election Commission wants to scale this special intensive revision and do it across India to address the problems, the confusion, the criticism which has crept in with regard to duplication of voters' identity and names. There have been certain instances where non-citizens and their names have been found on the voters list. There have been instances where illegal migrants, even from, let's say, countries like Bangladesh, they have managed to get registered on the voters list. We have seen this in states like Assam. We have seen this in parts of Bihar, West Bengal as well, where illegal migrants who are not citizens of India have managed to register on the voters list with the help of certain documents. So there is a need to sanitize the list, to remove the duplication, to remove any non-citizens. And we have to account for the changes that have taken place because of large scale urbanization and migration. which is a challenge we have been facing in the last 3 decades. Since LPG reforms, since globalization, there has been a large scale internal movement in our country, especially from states like UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, right? Migrant workers have moved in large numbers to southern, western, and northern parts of India. They are no longer residents in their hometowns, correct? Students across the country, they have moved around in large numbers, lakhs of them, crores of them. So, how do you account for these changes? How do you ensure that as much as possible the voters list is accurate? That is why Election Commission feels that there is a need for a SIR exercise, not just in Bihar. Bihar is just the start, it's just the beginning. Election Commission feels there is a need for a SIR exercise across India in the coming months. A special intensive revision of the voters list to check eligibility, to remove duplication, to remove any non-citizens, and ensure that it fulfills the constitutional and legal mandate. So I think now you have some clarity on this topic. Now, in Bihar, the last SIR exercise was carried out in 2003. Back in 2003, a complete updation was done. But now, because of all the changes that have taken place, a new exercise has been called for, and this is being carried out by the Electoral Registration Officer, the ERO, as recognized under the Representation of People Act 1950, who is usually the SDM, the subdivisional magistrate, right? Who is the electoral registration officer. Under his authority, his or her authority, this exercise is being conducted at the taluk level. Now, at the block level, you have these block level officers who are enumerated by the Election Commission. There are also block level agents appointed by political parties who facilitate the conduct of elections, right? Near voting booths, for example, you might have seen during elections that representatives of parties are also present who are the agents of that party, right? So, polling booth agents, the booth level agents of political parties, and several volunteers, they've all been roped in by the Election Commission because the SIR exercise in Bihar is a massive exercise. You need to check around 8 crore voters, and almost 3 crore of them, right? They were not registered in the 2003 exercise. They all became voters after 2003, meaning they reached 18 years of age after 2003. So these 3 crore new voters, they have they have to ensure that they have to prove their eligibility and criteria. This is a massive exercise which is being conducted. So to verify the identity and the date of birth, place of birth, and citizenship, Election Commission has given a list of documents that the people have to submit. Okay, first you have to submit a enumeration form. Each voter in Bihar, they have been given a deadline. Okay, Election Commission plans to do this in around 31 days, right? And the whole exercise is expected to be completed in around 25 days before the final list is brought out at the end of the month. So all the voters, right, all of them, they have to submit a enumeration form. All the 8 crore voters in Bihar have to submit the enumeration form. Those who have registered before 2003, those who are part of the SIR exercise, that is the 5 crore voters, they need not give any documents. They need not submit any documents. They just have to submit the enumeration form because their verification has already happened before 2003. Only those 3 crore voters who came up as eligible voters after 2003, who registered after 2003, they have to submit new documents proving their place of birth, date of birth, etc. Which means they have to provide documents of their parents, their caste certificate, land certificate, etc. Now you might ask why Aadhaar is not being considered. Why not Aadhaar? This is where the controversy comes up. See, the controversy is mainly regarding the duration, the documents which has been called for, and the possibility of removing migrant workers and students from the voters list. See, there are pros and cons to this exercise. There are many who support it. As I said, it is a needed exercise. You need to sanitize the list, you need to remove duplications, you need to ensure non-citizens are removed. Those who are not eligible are taken off the voters list. That is very essential. But the way in which the exercise is being carried out by the Election Commission has attracted a lot of controversy and criticism from experts and also from opposition parties. See, back in 2003, even then Election Commission had taken 31 days approximately to finish the exercise in Bihar. Now, this time as well, Election Commission is planning to do it in 31 days. So, experts and opposition parties are questioning how is it possible to finish such a massive exercise in just a month? Election Commission is defending itself, saying today we have better technology than 2003. In 2003, the whole enumeration verification was done manually, which was more time consuming. So, Election Commission is arguing that today we have better technology in 2025. Enumeration verification can all be done digitally, much more easier and faster. So, we can definitely finish in a month. But experts are pointing out the changes in population, in demographic trends, is so complex and complicated that if you rush this exercise, you'll end up making mistakes. What if there are unfair exclusions? What if there are unfair inclusions? That is, eligible voters might be left out and ineligible voters might get added. Now, that would be a bigger tragedy, like punishing an innocent. When you're taking away the right to vote, right? It's like punishing the innocent. That's why opposition leaders, critics, experts are pointing out that take it slow, take your time, give time to people as well. Election Commission has said submitting the documents can be done later as well. Right now, you just have to submit enumeration form. But still, the whole method in which the exercise is being carried out has raised questions regarding the effectiveness and the efficiency. And there are fears that many eligible voters might get left out and ineligible voters might get added into the list. These errors might creep into the list, which will be a bigger tragedy than what is present right now. That is one point of concern. Second is about documents. Right now, Election Commission has said, and this is very interesting, that Aadhaar is not, it's not a proof of your date of birth, your place of birth, or your citizenship. Some of you might be shocked. Then what is the point of Aadhaar? Wherever you go, Aadhaar is being asked. Even to sit for UPSC exams, to get a new SIM card, to open a new bank account, even to just move around, you need an Aadhaar card today. Then Election Commission and government are saying it's not a proof of anything. It's not a proof of your date of birth and your citizenship. Then what is the need of Aadhaar then? See, this is in line with the constitutional and legal requirements. But however, the irony here is that the same Aadhaar has been used by the Election Commission to get new voters enrolled. It is mandatory, in fact. If you're a new voter, let's say you just turned 18, okay, you go to get yourself enumerated on the voters list. Then according to existing rules, giving Aadhaar card is mandatory because Election Commission wants to check your place of birth, your proof, your date of birth, and your citizenship, and essentially it is seen as a proof. It's made mandatory by the Election Commission. But the same Election Commission is saying we can't consider it as a proof for verifying the eligibility and citizenship. So other documents are being asked, like caste certificates, land allocation certificates, and various other documents. But the criticism here is that many people, especially from the lower strata, especially those who are from the poorer sections of the society, they may not have these required documents. But what everybody has today is an Aadhaar card. The poorest of the poorest person will definitely have an Aadhaar card. Especially poor people will definitely have Aadhaar with them because today Aadhaar will give you access to government rights and privileges, government welfare, right? Welfare programs are being delivered through it. Government subsidies, government assistance, which is given to students, farmers, etc. It is all seeded to your Aadhaar number. So almost everybody at the lower sections of the society who are socio-economically weaker, they definitely have Aadhaar, but they may not have other documents which Election Commission is asking today. So will their names be excluded from the voters list just because they don't have other documents, though they have the Aadhaar with them? The same Election Commission and government are using Aadhaar as mandatory to get new voters registered. But they're saying for SIR exercise, it's not a proof of birth or your date of birth or your citizenship. So that is why critics and experts and opposition leaders are criticizing the Election Commission regarding the non-inclusion of Aadhaar as a valid document. And finally, the possibility of leaving out migrant workers and students from home constituencies. See, they will still be eligible to vote wherever they are original residents, wherever they are ordinary residents. Let's say a migrant worker from Bihar has moved to Mumbai and settled in Mumbai. So this individual can register in Mumbai as a voter by proving that they are ordinary resident with the residence documents, and they can still vote in Mumbai, but they can't go back to Bihar and vote if their names are removed from the home constituency. And that's what Election Commission is trying to do. Election Commission wants to take out the names of these voters who have moved out of their home constituency, settled in some other part of the country. They would have registered in another constituency as well. Election Commission wants to do away with this. But experts and critics are pointing out that this would be unfair. Even today, many migrant workers, students, etc., they prefer to go back all the way to their home constituency and vote, though they don't live there anymore, because they're connected to the roots. When you're giving the same right to NRIs, correct? NRIs who are settled abroad, they retain their name in the voters list in their home constituency. They can come back during elections and vote in their home constituency. The question is, why are you going to deny this for internal migrant workers who have moved to another part of the country? If they want to go back and vote in their home constituency, let them do it. And experts and critics are pointing out this is their basic right. So, attempt to remove migrant voters from the list is something that has sparked concern as well. And these are the issues which have come up. Though it's a very necessary exercise, the way in which it is being done, the process is being questioned. And that is why the topic is very important. So please take down this mains practice question. Why has the Election Commission of India decided to conduct a special intensive revision of the electoral rolls of the entire country? What are some of the major contentions with the present SIR process? So please try to write an answer based on the structure that we discussed for the first question. Now let's quickly look at the remaining articles today. There is an article related to the BRICS summit, which took place yesterday in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Brazil hosted this year's BRICS summit. So quick background about BRICS and the developments of the summit and the evaluation of BRICS as a grouping. See, the evolution of BRICS goes back to early 2000 when Jim O'Neill, a well-renowned economist at Goldman Sachs, he coined the term BRIC, B-R-I-C. It was a reference to the new emerging economies, Brazil, Russia, India, China. He propounded that these four are the emerging economies of the world which can reshape global financial architecture. This eventually took a diplomatic turn in 2006 when the foreign ministers of BRIC countries met in New York on the sidelines of UN GA summit. Then following the 2008-9 financial crisis and the global recession, which was primarily a result of the mismanagement of the global economy by Western powers and the misuse of global financial institutions like World Bank and IMF by US and European Union, the BRIC countries decided enough is enough and they tried to create a parallel structure opposing the Western dominated financial institutions. So in 2009, BRIC formally took shape with its first summit in Russia at Yekaterinburg. Next year in 2010, South Africa was added as a member and it became BRICS as we know. And this group has essentially projected itself as a counter to the G7. If G7 includes Western developed industrialized economies that primarily control the global economy and the financial architecture, BRICS was seen as a rival, a counter to it, to reform the global financial architecture, comprised of emerging economies. BRICS countries have set up rival institutions such as the New Development Bank that rivals the World Bank. They set up the Contingent Reserve Arrangement or CRA that rivals the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. And along with this, BRICS, it diversified itself, focused on global geopolitical issues and strategic issues, including ongoing conflicts, global crisis, and even the issues of terrorism. So BRICS has become a very important grouping for these emerging developing economies. Recently, BRICS has gone through a significant expansion. Several new members have been added in quick succession. and this includes Egypt from North Africa, Iran and United Arab Emirates from West Asia, Ethiopia from Africa, Indonesia as well. So all these new members have been added. BRICS even invited Argentina and Saudi Arabia to become members. But however, Argentina rejected the membership because of a change in government. The new Argentinian leader, Javier Milei, because of his ideological inclination towards the US, rejected the BRICS membership. So Argentina is not going to join. Saudi Arabia has been hesitant. Though Saudi Arabia was invited, it has not yet formally joined BRICS. So it's not a member as of now. It is still sitting on the fence because Saudi Arabia has good ties with US and as well as with BRICS countries. It wants to strike a balance, so it is hesitant to join the BRICS. So apart from them, Egypt, Iran, UAE, Ethiopia, and recently Indonesia, they've all joined the BRICS, and we have seen a very rapid expansion of the group. The new development bank has added many new members from UAE to Bangladesh to Paraguay, Uruguay. All these new countries have joined new development bank where BRICS countries have equal voting rights and equal share. Unlike World Bank and IMF, which is controlled by the Western powers, both the Bretton Woods institutions are primarily controlled by US and EU. The World Bank is primarily dominated by the US. IMF is dominated by the European Union. They retain most of the voting share and voting rights. But under the BRICS, NDB and CRA provide for a more equitable sharing of power. And this has been a hallmark feature of the BRICS. So definitely, BRICS has seen a lot of progress and achievements to its credit. But the BRICS summit, which was held, right, the outcomes are quite limited. If you look at the Rio Declaration that was adopted, and if you look at the overall progress of the summit in Brazil, right, there's nothing really big to take away. Because, see, first of all, Russian President Putin did not participate physically. Why? Because there is an arrest warrant against Russian President Putin issued by the International Criminal Court, and Brazil is a signatory to the Rome Statute. So Brazil would be obligated to arrest Russian President Putin if he lands in Brazil. So to avoid the diplomatic conundrum, Putin decided not to attend the summit and he attended virtually. But the biggest setback was Chinese President Xi Jinping did not attend. China has not given the official reason, but Xi Jinping has chosen not to attend the summit. Instead, China was represented by its premier. Chinese premier was leading the Chinese delegation, whereas India was led by its Prime Minister, Prime Minister Modi. Brazil, which is the host, right, was obviously led by its president, Lula da Silva. Then you have a South African leader who was also part of the BRICS summit, but Xi Jinping was not present. Chinese president did not attend the summit this time, which directly affects the very standing and the outcomes of the summit. But it was significant, at least from India's perspective, because Prime Minister Modi used the platform to raise the issue of terrorism, to build that narrative that we are creating against Pakistan, to isolate Pakistan for sponsoring terrorism against India. PM Modi brought up the brutal Pahalgam attack, rallied support for India, and BRICS countries adopted few statements regarding Pahalgam attack and countering terrorism. India has urged the BRICS members to combat terrorism in line with principles of UN Charter and global humanitarian laws. We have called upon the world to adopt the UN Convention on Terrorism, the Comprehensive Convention on International Terrorism, which has been proposed by India. India has been pushing for the CCIT convention since 1990s, and the BRICS countries have encouraged India to push this forward, and they have expressed support for the early adoption of the UN Comprehensive Convention on International Terrorism. Apart from this, India used the platform to push the global South narrative. India, which has championed itself as a leader of the developing world, used the BRICS platform to push for greater representation for global south, for developing nations at critical platforms, particularly the United Nations. And we brought up the issue of UN reforms. PM Modi was very vocal about how United Nations and other global systems were outdated. He was referring to not just the UN, but even the World Bank and IMF, which are all dominated just by few countries, few elite powers which have control over them. These organizations are stuck in the World War era. From last 70, 80 years, they have never reformed. So PM Modi said, how can you run a 21st century software on a 20th century typewriter? He said systems like UN, which are outdated, it's like having a mobile phone with a SIM but with no network. These are very apt references given by the Prime Minister, a very strong push to reform the UN and the global architecture itself. And we have got support from the BRICS countries for reforming the UN and inclusion of India and Brazil in the UN Security Council. Right? Russia, China have verbally backed India's demand, though China doesn't do anything to push for UN reforms. It even tries to stall UN reforms just for the sake of it, right? Through BRICS, it has expressed support for India and Brazil to seek membership of the UN Security Council. India, Brazil are part of a group called G4. There are four countries from different parts of the world which are pushing for a permanent seat at the UNSC. India and Brazil are two of them. Can you find out which are the other two countries and mention that in the comments? There are a total of four major powers, right, from across the world, which are part of this informal group called G4, pushing for a permanent seat at the UNSC, who are pushing for UN reforms. So India and Brazil are part of it. Who are the other two countries? Please mention that in the comments. Now, what is the final analysis about BRICS? See, BRICS has a lot of potential. It has created many opportunities. It has taken several big initiatives. It definitely has some achievements to its credit. In fact, BRICS members have even considered alternate currencies to de-dollarize the global economy. They are even considering trading by using their national currencies to reduce the dependency on the US dollar. They're also considering creating their own credit rating system to move away from Western controlled credit rating agencies. But despite all the potential opportunities and achievements, BRICS is always being held back by the internal differences in the group. There are experts who say that there are a lot of bricks but no cement. There's no cement to hold the bricks together because there are a lot of differences within the group. Look at India and China having constant tensions between them. Look at the differences between India, Brazil, South Africa on one side, Russia, China on the other side. Correct? Russia, China are authoritarian regimes, autocracies. India, Brazil, South Africa are democracies. Even the new countries which have been added, Iran, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, they're all different forms of autocracies, authoritarian regimes. So ideologically, fundamentally, these countries are different. Russia, China want BRICS to be an anti-West group because of their rivalries with the West. Russia, China are very clear that BRICS has to be a platform to oppose and counter and target the West, target the G7. That is their goal, their objective through BRICS. They're very clear about this. But India, Brazil, South Africa, they want to balance between the West and Russia and China. So how is this relationship going to work when you have different priorities, different interests, and different ideologies? That is a very valid argument as well. That's why many experts question the very viability of a grouping like BRICS. It's good to hold summits and launch some initiatives, but it may not be a viable counter to the G7 or the West, according to some experts. But India still has faith in it. And also, China might have chosen not to attend at the highest level. Maybe Xi Jinping deliberately didn't attend because China also has realized that BRICS is no longer a platform to target the West. because India, Brazil, South Africa, and others are pulling it away to adopt a more balanced approach. So it doesn't serve China's propaganda and agenda anymore. So maybe China is no longer giving priority to BRICS. So that is a fear, a concern which is coming up. Because both Russia and China want BRICS to be a platform to directly counter and target the Western countries because of their rivalry with the West. But India, Brazil, South Africa can't afford that, right? We want a more balanced relationship between these rivals. And that is the internal complexity, the differences present, which could drag the group down, which is holding the group back. So let me know what you think. Will BRICS be a success? Can it be an effective counter to the West? Or should we even look at BRICS as a counter to the West? Right? That is the whole point. So let me know in the comments. Next topic, which continues from the previous article. Prime Minister Modi's visit to 5 different countries back to back in just 9 days. Now, this is quite significant. We have been tracking PM Modi's travel over the last few days, and the travel continues for a couple of days more. So, these visits are very critical as it highlights India's priorities in the global south. Because all the countries the Prime Minister is visiting, right, during these 9 day period, it's all focused on developing underdeveloped countries. So, let's quickly look at them one by one. First, the Prime Minister visited Ghana on his way to Brazil to attend the BRICS summit, right? The PM, when he started out his journey, he visited Ghana, a key country in West Africa, which is quite close to India. In fact, India and Ghana were the founding members of the non-aligned movement back in 1960s when Prime Minister Nehru implemented India's principle of strategic autonomy and followed an independent foreign policy and chose to stay away from the Cold War rivalries by creating the non-aligned movement. Ghana was one of the countries that stood with India. Ghana also has a decent Indian community. A lot of Indian businesses operate here. And in West Africa, there are plenty of resources that India has been eyeing, from hydrocarbons to key minerals. That's why this visit to Ghana was very crucial. And during the visit, Ghana has shown a lot of interest to adopt India's UPI and RuPay payment systems. Ghana will be receiving a lot of assistance from India for developmental projects. As it is a backward country, India will be playing a direct role in socio-economic development initiatives through loans and grants. And more importantly, India is gaining access to its pharma exports to Ghana. India wants to establish Ghana as a vaccine hub of West Africa region. Indian pharma companies are very eager not only to export vaccines and generic drugs to this African country, but we want to establish manufacturing facilities and enable Ghana to become a vaccine hub of the West Africa region. So this visit of Prime Minister Modi not only creates new markets for our pharma sector and other key exports, but it also cements India's influence and position in West Africa, where we are in direct competition with China. Then we have already covered all the big initiatives that was announced in Trinidad and Tobago, right? Yesterday and day after, day before, we've already discussed all the big initiatives that India has announced in Trinidad and Tobago. So please go back and watch the analysis. PM Modi met with the Indian community, praised the contribution of the Indian diaspora. We even put in place several initiatives in education, healthcare. India has announced fresh funds for developmental projects in Trinidad and Tobago. And we are also rolling out UPI in Trinidad and Tobago. Right? India has found export market for pharmaceuticals again. Indian pharma companies will be exporting vaccines and generic drugs to this Caribbean nation. And we are using the country to cement our ties with the CARICOM group, with the Caribbean community, to step up our influence across the Caribbean Latin America region. This was followed by PM Modi's visit to another country from global south, another developing and struggling nation, which is Argentina. PM Modi met with Javier Milei, and Argentina is strategically crucial for us because it is a country that is part of the lithium triangle. It is blessed with second largest lithium reserves in the world. India has already secured few lithium salt brine blocks for mining India's public sector unit Kabil, Khanij Bidesh India Limited, has already won the license for few salt brine flats where lithium deposits are found. And we are stepping up our investments across the lithium triangle, covering the ABC countries of South America. ABC stands for Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile. These South American countries are considered to be part of the lithium triangle, which is crucial for renewable energy transition, for electric vehicles, battery storage, etc. Then Argentina is also blessed with one of the largest shale gas and shale oil reserves, which can provide energy security for India. It can help us diversify our energy sources, reduce our dependency on West Asian oil and gas, which is very prone to vulnerability, right? So India is building up its strategic ties and energy security and other aspects of the relationship with Argentina. PM Modi in Brazil to attend the BRICS summit is again a symbol, a powerful symbol of India being a leader of the global south. The visit is meant to cement our historical ties and our common interests. Now, after Brazil, PM Modi will again have a stopover in Africa to visit the southern African nation of Namibia. Namibia is a crucial partner for us because of its uranium and oil deposits. Did you know we even have a civil nuclear deal? India has signed a civil nuclear agreement with Namibia, and Namibia can be a key supplier of uranium to power India's civilian program, the nuclear power program of India. It can be a key energy provider to India. Understood? So, we are also bound by our colonial history. If you look at all these countries that PM Modi has chosen to visit, from Ghana to Trinidad, Tobago, Brazil, then Argentina and Namibia, all five of them have a colonial past. Either they were ruled by Britain or Spain or Portugal or Germany. They've all been colonized. Their economies have been destroyed and looted by colonial powers. Their culture, tradition has been damaged by colonial exploitation. So there is a shared history, a shared pain. And as developing nations, we have common interests, be it for climate change, for socio-economic development, sustainable development. We have similar priorities, even with regard to global conflicts that are going on. The Gaza war, Ukraine war, we pretty much have similar positions, right? Though we do have some differences over them. This is something that brings these countries together. So these visits of PM Modi, visiting these five countries in 9 days, it was clearly designed to cement India's position as a leader in the global south. Clear? So that is what we take away from this visit. Next, two big articles, but I will give a quick assessment of what is the crux of this article. In page 9, there's an article which points out that India's measured diplomacy, where we take a balanced position on some of the ongoing conflicts, where we appear to remain silent, or sometimes it can be construed as non alignment. It's actually not silence or non alignment. This measured response of India is a very calculated move which aligns with our multi alignment policy. That is the point the writer is trying to make. Now, if you look at the recent conflict between Israel and Iran, India initially, in the initial few days, was very silent. We didn't even comment about the tensions that were taking place between Israel and Iran. Despite the risk of a bigger conflict with nuclear consequences, India remained tight lipped. We remained silent. And later, we called for de escalation on both sides. We focused on evacuating our citizens through Operation Sindu. But we didn't condemn Israel or US, we didn't condemn Iran as well. We maintained a very balanced position. So this has been interpreted as India's silence or India's retreat to the non-alignment era. Many criticize India for this approach as well, saying India it is scared to take a decision that we don't align with certain powers. Some say we should align directly with Israel and US. Some say we should align with Iran. Right? This is seen in the case of Gaza conflict as well. Right, on the Israel-Palestine question, even with regard to Ukraine war. Right, there is pressure on India that we should align with Europe and US. At the same time, there is pressure that we should directly align with Russia. But most times, you see that we don't align with either sides. We appear to take the neutral path, the middle path, And whenever such dilemmas and conflicts present in our diplomacy, we always choose this balanced approach. But many criticize this as a silence of India, as the weakness of India. They say India is still stuck in the non aligned era. But the writer dismisses this entire argument, and I totally agree with the writer. This silence is not a blind silence, right? The balanced, measured approach we take is a well calculated approach. Sometimes not doing anything in itself is a big decision. Just because you're not deciding, right, doesn't mean you haven't taken a decision. Not taking a decision itself is a decision. And that's what India pioneers in. That is our policy of multi alignment. We seek to work with any power that serves our interests, our national interests. Right? We are not here to serve Israeli interests or Iranian interests or American interests or Russian interests. India's primary goal is to serve its own national interests. So we are well served when we take a balanced position, give a measured diplomatic response, and if needed, we are even ready to lead the initiative to bring some conflicts to end. India did urge Russia to end the war. We even offered to mediate between Russia and Ukraine, right? We vehemently support the creation of Palestine, support the two-state solution, and call out the Israeli illegal occupation of Palestinian territories. This is a very calculated response of India, keeping in mind the broader interests. So don't ever mistake India's silence or balanced approach for weakness or silence. It is a well calculated diplomatic policy that we are following since the times of Prime Minister Nehru. Because our foreign policy is rooted in the principle of strategic autonomy. We have an independent foreign policy. Clear? Next, this article on page 11 talks about Google AI overviews. Google AI overviews has been hit with antitrust allegations in the European market. So, what is Google AI overviews? I'm sure many of you would have already seen this, right? You would have noticed it, you might be aware of it as well. When you search for something on Google, have you seen that at the top of the search page, before the search ranks are given out, before the websites are listed, at the top there is a AI summary which is given at the top of the search page. Correct? Let's say you search how to prepare for UPSC. Before all the websites are listed according to their search ranking, at the top you get a AI summary at the top of the search page, which immediately grabs your attention. Most of us today read from the summary first before clicking on a particular website. This feature, this new feature that Google has built into its search engine is called AI overviews. So through AI, through the data which is available, Google is training this algorithm to provide a quick summary of the topics that people are searching for, to encourage people to search more, to read more, etc. But there are few who are opposed to this new feature. Publishers, creators of content, media outlets, they are opposing this feature of Google, and they are alleging that this is an antitrust breach. It's a breach of competitive laws. Why? Because when you are shown a summary, there is a good chance that you will never click on the website of these publishers and creators and media channels who would have actually created the content. They would have invested money, spent their resources to create that content for you. Now, Google is simply skimming the content, learning from the data, and presenting a quick summary. So, most people will be satisfied with the summary which has been given. They may never click on the website. Clear? So, this can reduce the traffic for original content creators, for the publishers and media agencies. And the worst part is that Google has been monetizing the AI overview feature. If you observe closely, right next to this AI summary, there will be Google ads, which is getting displayed, which means Google is earning ad revenue by monetizing this space in the search page. So when the half of the page is occupied by the AI summary and Google ads, most people may not scroll down and click on the actual websites from where the content was taken. So this will affect the traffic and of course the ad revenue for the original content creators, the publishers and the media outlets. And this is seen as unfair and against the spirit of competition. Because see, Google has a dominance, complete dominance, and almost a monopoly in the search engine market. So Google can easily misuse that monopoly and dominance to divert most of the traffic to itself and use the content created by publishers and media agencies and content creators and make money out of it without sharing even one penny out of this for the original content creators. That is why publishers and those who support a free open web, they've all filed antitrust claims against Google in the European market, in United Kingdom and also in the European Union. So this is an ongoing litigation. Now coming to the prelim section, let's take a quick look at the articles one by one. On the front page, we have an article referring to a new nuclear reactor. The Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, which regulates the nuclear sector in the country, which grants licenses and approvals for operationalization of nuclear power plants, has granted the approval for operationalizing two pressurized heavy water reactors at Kakrapar Atomic Power Station in the state of Gujarat. This is a big win for the Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited, NPCIL, which sets up and operates nuclear plants in the country. Because these pressurized heavy water reactors in the 700 megawatt category, they are indigenously designed and built. These pressurized heavy water reactors which are being commissioned, they are completely indigenous, and it's a big win for India's nuclear sector and the NPCIL. So please make a note of this development, a very factual topic. Next, on page 6, we have an article from Environment and Ecology. The article refers to popular Malayalam actor Suresh Gopi, Union Minister as well. He has been alleged to have, procured a leopard tooth, believed that he is in possession of a leopard tooth, which has now come under investigation because any such possession of the products of a wild animal, right, which is protected under the law, constitutes a violation of the Wildlife Protection Act and can even attract a jail term. The Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 protects various species of animals, birds, etc., to protect our biodiversity. They are listed under various schedules. You have Schedule 1, Schedule 2, etc. Schedule 1 animals, they receive the highest protection. So hunting and poaching of these animals is prohibited. It's not just the hunting and poaching of these animals, even possessing the trophy. When animals are hunted as game, the products and the animal parts which are taken as a trophy, right? Possessing them is also illegal and prohibited under the law, and it can attract a jail term. And that is the key point you need to understand here. Because leopard is protected under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act. Even those species of animals protected under Part 2 of Schedule 2. Nobody can possess any part of such animals or the trophy following the killing of these animals unless and until it is inherited. Because there are few royal families, right, where centuries ago they would have hunted few animals and possess these trophies and artifacts, and they might be passed down through subsequent generations. So such inheritance is allowed. But once the law came into effect from 1972 onwards, any hunting, poaching, killing is completely prohibited of Schedule 1 animals and some Schedule 2 animals. And ownership of any of these products of trophies is also prohibited. And if you're violating the law, it attracts a very serious jail term. It contains a significant punishment. That is the key provision you need to note down. Next, we have another important topic here related to the National Commission for Minorities. The government of India has not appointed a chairperson. It has not even filled the vacancies of the members in this critical body, the National Commission for Minorities. So let's quickly learn about the National Commission for Minorities, the key facts which can be important. National Commission for Minorities, it's a quasi-judicial body, a statutory body established through the National Commission on Minorities Act of 1992, mainly to protect the rights of minorities, religious minorities in particular. This statutory quasi-judicial body consists of It consists of 7 members in total, including a vice chairperson and a chairperson and 5 other members. So there are 5 regular members and as well as a vice chairperson and a chairperson. So totally composition is 7. These positions are lying vacant since it was last vacated by the previous chairperson and the government has not bothered to appoint the new chairperson and the new members. This severely affects the functioning of a key quasi-judicial statutory body, and the law also mandates that at least 6 of these 7 members should belong to religious minority groups such as Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jain, Parsi, and Jain and Sikh community. This is a mandate of the law. See, previously as well, we have seen that these positions have been left vacant for months together. We saw this in 2017 as well, where the functioning of the National Commission for Minorities, which functions under the Ministry of Minority Affairs, was severely compromised as the government had delayed the appointments. The matter reached the Delhi High Court as well. And in 2021, Delhi High Court ordered the government to quickly fill up these vacant posts. Because if NCM is vacant and if it is not functional fully, it affects the functioning of another related quasi judicial body, the National Commission for Minority Educational Institutions. This institution is responsible for protecting the educational rights of minorities, which is constitutionally guaranteed. Clear? This National Commission functions under Ministry of Education. It has 3 members, including a chairperson who has to be a retired High Court judge or at least of a similar rank, along with 2 other members. These positions will also remain vacant if NCM vacancies are not filled. Because if NCM is not fully functional, then who will take care of the National Commission for Minority Educational Institutions, which has such an important mandate to protect the educational rights of minorities in the country? These are the key facts you take away from here. And finally, we look at this important article related to the Great Nicobar Island project, which the government of India is pushing very ambitiously. India wants to turn Andaman Nicobar into a strategic economic and military hub of India. India has some grand plans. We already have a tri-service command operating at Andaman Nicobar. And India wants to carry out a strategic economic transformation as well, given its pivotal location in the Indo-Pacific and its proximity to Malacca Strait. So, on the Great Nicobar Island Group, India is planning a transshipment port facility, a new international airport, a power plant, and as well as a township and an industrial cluster. These projects, though they have received all environmental clearances, it has raised a lot of socio and environmental concerns. These projects could lead to the displacement and uprooting of the native tribes. The Nicobarese, the Shompen tribes, they might be displaced because of these mega projects. And there would be large scale deforestation and destruction of the forest and the biodiversity of the region. So, a lot of environmental social concerns have come up. Apart from that, there is a big concern about the vulnerability of the region for earthquakes and tsunamis, which the government appears to be dismissing because recently the environment impact assessment report for this project has been submitted. And according to the EIA study, which has been brought out by the Andaman Nicobar Island Integrated Development Corporation, which is responsible for developing these projects, the earthquake tsunami risk has been downplayed significantly. The EIA report says that there is a very low risk and uncertainty of any big earthquake or tsunami happening here. But established facts, geological facts, they suggest otherwise. In 2004, right, off the coast of Sumatra at Banda Aceh, a massive underwater earthquake triggered a huge tsunami, causing massive destruction across the Indian Ocean. In fact, the Andaman region sits right along that fault line of the Pacific Ring of Fire, where you have the Nicobarese Sumatra fault line, which is extremely prone to mega earthquakes. In fact, within the Andaman Nicobar group, there are local fault lines within the Great Nicobar Island. And it's one of the most geodynamic region where infrastructure creation is very challenging and dangerous because they will be very prone and vulnerable to the impact of disasters. So this concern is being entirely sidelined by the government, and that's why there's a lot of criticism and opposition against these upcoming projects. Now, coming to the last article. On the supplement page, where Hindu brings out some interesting science related articles. This article talks about improving weather forecasting and our understanding of the global climate by using AI models to understand what's happening under the seas and the oceans. Because see, today we have a lot of scientific data which we are collecting from the atmosphere, from the waters, and under the water as well. And we are using the satellite data, the sensors data, feeding it into these supercomputers, which run these weather forecasting models to provide us with relatively accurate weather analysis and climate modeling and climate prediction. But going forward, the world is going to become more uncertain as global warming impacts the climatic patterns and weather systems change. It's going to become even more challenging to predict weather and climate change. That's where there is a new field which is developing in weather forecasting, where AI models are being used to collect data, advanced data from under the water, to look at some patterns that are present under the seas and the oceans and study them and use AI models to provide better analysis and better forecasting. As of now, humans are not able to, you know, provide that interpretation and interconnection because it's a very complex interconnection that exists in the atmosphere, in the water, and under the water. For example, under the seas and the oceans, we have something called eddy currents. This is something you need to note down. The mesoscale eddies, or also known as eddy currents. These are underwater currents present in the seas and the oceans that can span hundreds of kilometers. They are essentially responsible for the transfer of heat, nutrition, and salinity in the seas and the oceans. Nutrients, heat, and salinity is getting transferred. This has a direct impact on the temperature and the weather patterns in the atmosphere as well. So, understanding these parameters and accounting them into weather modeling systems is something that humans can't do right now. It does spike human curiosity, but our understanding is limited. Our capabilities to interconnect these complex patterns is very limited. But AI driven computer models can definitely make use of all this data, study the phenomena of mesoscale eddies or eddy currents, club this with satellite data and other parameters to provide with more accurate and better forecasting of weather and climate change. That is what we take away from this last article. So on this note, I bring my discussion to an end. I hope you guys have understood everything. And if you like the session, do press the like button, share your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. That's it. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.